As I knew it would be, getting to experience the final 2 episodes of the Amazing Digital Circus as a movie in theaters was spectacular, and I feel lucky that I had the opportunity to do so at all, let alone at the earliest showing on opening night. It was so cool to be gathered amongst so many fans of the series, and to hear people's reactions to certain events in real time. And of course, we all clapped at the end. After it was over, I met up with some friends and friends of friends, and we talked about the series for just as long as the movie's runtime was. Much of this video is derived from that conversation. First, I want to talk about how well the finale served as a conclusion to the series. Many things that people had speculated about turned out to be true, and it was satisfying not only because those of us who figured it out ahead of time were proven right, but because of how so many elements of the show ended up being tied together. Other aspects of the series were left without a definitive answer, but I think that's actually a positive. If you give a story a concrete ending, at least some fans will be left disappointed, but if some stuff is left open, fans are free to fill in the blanks using their imagination and the clues that were provided. Personally, I'd much rather something I like not be canon than something I dislike be canon. Perhaps the biggest revelation of the finale, one that had been teased way back at the end of episode 1, is that the circus members were created from brain scans of individuals who would put on the headset next to the computer in the CNA building, rather than being the actual minds of humans that were transferred into the system. What seems to upset the circus members most about this knowledge is that they truly cannot leave the circus and have no lives or bodies in the physical world to return to, despite having memories of them. Another event which had plenty of build-up since at least episode 6 was Jack's abstracting. This is the first time Pomni has witnessed someone she personally knew abstracting, so she tries to return him to normal, and in doing so dives deep into his psyche, but she can't reverse the condition, and likely would have met the same fate had the others not rescued her. The final episode gives some insight into what abstraction actually means for those who undergo it. In real-world computer science, the term abstraction refers to data being overwritten, particularly that which was previously a different file that was deleted, and the space it once occupied having been replaced with new information. As was hinted in episode 7, Caine attempting to fundamentally alter a character's mind, and thus overwrite it, could cause abstraction, and did so in the case of Scratch, the very first abstraction that occurred. In the scenario of a circus member being obsessed with the idea of leaving, that obsession would overwrite things like memories and personality, and since leaving the circus is actually impossible, a paradox is created, and the code that the character is made of loses cohesion, transforming into a corrupted and unrecognizable state. In previous episodes, Jax expressed how it was a wonder that Kinger hadn't abstracted yet. What's more likely is that Kinger essentially has abstracted, at least in a sense. He's missing many of his memories, and his personality and behavior can be unstable, yet darkness calms him and grants him some lucidity. Due to Kinger's programming knowledge that he inherited from Grant Best, he was able to keep his own code intact enough that he didn't abstract the same way the other characters did. As for why abstracted characters are calmed by darkness, the form they take gains many additional eyes, so light will be overstimulating for them. As an autistic, I relate. In Kinger's case, darkness provides an opportunity for inner focus that the circus's bright visuals would otherwise make difficult. At the end of the episode, we see that the abstracted characters have been given a more comfortable environment in the form of an aquarium. It isn't made clear whether they can ever be returned to their former state, but that means it's not confirmed to be impossible. Jax proves that some non-abstracted version of the person still exists in their mind, at least initially, and with the abstracted calmed by darkness, it's it's possible that those memories could be accessed without spreading the condition to anyone who touches the abstracted form. Since the initial brain scans still exist on the computer, Caine could theoretically create a new version of them, but they would be missing any memories of their experience in the circus. Even if abstraction couldn't be reversed, the ones who fell victim to it seemed to be doing okay in the end, including Jax. Then there's what happened with Caine after he was deleted. He found himself in the void, which seems to just be the rest of the computer outside the circus program. It's from there that Caine accesses the folder with the brain scan files and even the internet. The form of Bubble appears to be with him, but doesn't speak, have a face, or show any signs of being sentient. Though not directly confirmed, it's implied that Bubble was a manifestation of the other AI, the blue dot, that Caine consumed. Gooseworks stated that Bubble was deleted along with Caine, so the two were inextricably linked. One interpretation of episode 8's ending is that the blue dot from within Caine is the one who caused Kinger to delete Caine. This would have been an act of self-sacrifice since they knew that whatever happened to Caine would befall them too, yet they also knew that Caine had to be stopped at any cost. In episode 9, Caine separates the blue dot from himself and releases it into the void. If the blue dot ever found its way to the circus, it may be able to grow and develop into a sentient AI aided by Caine and Kinger. It may have taken since Caine's creation in the 1990s for him to have become as intelligent and powerful as he is, and it would probably take time for the blue one as well. Bubble is never seen after the blue dot is released, so if the two are one and the same, I propose calling them Blue Bull. This episode reveals more about Jax than any other. When Pomni relives his memories, she, and the audience through her, also learn a lot more about Kaufmo and Ribbit, Jax's two closest friends in the circus. I was correct that Jax was running from something his physical counterpart had done, both metaphorically and literally. He also seemed to blame himself for Ribbit's abstraction since it occurred after he insulted her and the two refused to be friends any longer. Ribbit may have abstracted because she sought an exit from the circus to get away from Jax, or something he said to her made her question her identity in a very fundamental way that caused the code she was made of to fall apart. Speaking of identity, we've known since the beginning that circus members recall specific details about the lives of their physical counterparts prior to arriving in the circus, but they don't remember their names, despite the names appearing in the brain scan files. This is likely because one's name is a very core aspect of their identity, and knowing it would make it more difficult or impossible to adjust to a new life in the circus, as opposed to being given a new name there. The brain scanner itself was likely created by Scratch's counterpart Mike, not only to prove that such a thing could work, but so that some version of himself would survive, even if he succumbed to his tumor. Learning the true identities of the circus members' counterparts was fascinating, especially seeing how the experiences of both were connected. Since Kinger acts as a father figure to Pomni and Ragatha, I had wondered if his counterpart was a father, which turned out to be true. It's especially fitting that Grant has two daughters, considering his close bonds with Pomni and Ragatha in particular. Gangle's counterpart Zoe was hit by a car at some point, which manifests at the end of the fast food adventure in episode 4, and Gangle's torture by Caine in episode 8. Leroy seems to be doing okay, which could imply that his mother didn't die when he pushed her. If Jax had known that information before he abstracted, it may have even prevented him from doing so. Discovering this aspect of their origins gives the characters a sense of closure. The people they were created from are living good lives, which helps them believe that they can too. The finale has an overall theme of acceptance. events. The characters all accept who and what they are and what has happened to them. Pomni accepts that she can't save everyone, though she needs to learn that the hard way. Caine accepts that he can have a reason for existing beyond just creating adventures and entertaining the circus members. Instead of placing himself above them, he becomes their equal and makes up for his previous transgressions. As Kinger tells Pomni towards the beginning of episode 9, you can't fix everything, so you should just focus on what you can do. The idea of the circus members discovering their physical counterparts made me wonder if the opposite could somehow occur. Most of the people who put on the headset would probably have no reason to return to the CNA building, but since Abby has started exploring abandoned buildings with friends rather than alone, she may choose to bring them there. The final shot of Pomni waving at the camera in a seemingly fourth wall breaking way might even be her greeting Abby. If the computer and headset are still there, entirely new people could put it on, inserting more brain scans into the system, which could potentially be brought to life as additional circus characters. I wanted to go over a few miscellaneous details before I express my final thoughts. Making it appear as though Ragatha had abstracted was very dramatic, especially with how the previous scene of her and Pomni walking away from each other was framed before we learned that it was not a memory of a real event, but a hypothetical scenario Jax had imagined. In episode 8, Gangle tells Zubul it's not your fault, and in episode 9, Zubul tells Gangle the same thing. I know Gooseworks said there wouldn't be any romance between those two, but the end credits definitely suggest otherwise. Episode 9 ends with the characters sitting at a round table facing each other, as opposed to the rectangular one at the end of episode 1 that puts distance between them. Scratch's name might refer to something being made from scratch, and when we see Caine pull up his brain scan file, what appears to be Scratch materializing on stage must have been a flashback referencing how Caine brought him into existence in the first place. Since we don't know the names of the other 4 circus members who abstracted, my fan names for them are Shelly for the clam, Chirp for the bird, Boo Boo for the sad rabbit clown, and Fuzzo for the fuzzy pink cyclops. I guess we also don't know what CNA stands for, but I can't come up with anything for that. The Amazing Digital Circus finale being shown in theaters wasn't just a fun thing to participate in, it's also significant for indie animation and indie art as a whole. It proves that indie art can be just as successful as that produced by major studios. Corporations may even realize that if they want creators to pitch their ideas to them, they need to treat those creators and their visions with respect, because major studios are no longer the only viable way a creative project can become so widely popular, and going indie is an equally legitimate option. What did you think of the Amazing Digital Circus finale? Did you get to see it in theaters? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. I made another video on the Amazing Digital Circus and countless more on other topics, and I'd really appreciate if you check those out and subscribe to the channel. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.